Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chelsea and welcome to BOOKMAS. Now today we are going to be talking about 25 books that are on the top of my 2025 TBR. I did this challenge in 2024 as well, but I'm going to be restructuring the way that I'm setting up my TBR strictly because I think for 2024 I chose just random books off my physical TBR that I wanted to read. And one of my goals for 2025 is to read every book on my physical TBR or it's getting out of here. So I wanted to make a list outside of just my physical TBR. And that's where I came up with this list. Now we have 5 different categories. We've got Kindle Unlimited, we have a physical TBR category, we have new releases, we have sequels, and we have fan fiction. What I'm hoping for this specific TBR is that I will be able to get to some books that may fall like lower in my monthly TBR. Books that I'm not thinking about all the time, or maybe a book that I'm really excited for that's just gonna check one off the list. So let's go ahead and dive right in to my first category, which is going to be new releases. All right, first up on this list should be no surprise to anyone, and that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, the first of which was Fourth Wing. I am currently rereading both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame in anticipation of the release of Onyx Storm. I really loved Fourth Wing. I didn't love Iron Flame, so I'm really hoping we get back to like the Fourth Wing vibes in Onyx Storm. There's so much that happened at the end of Iron Flame. I think she set this up really well, and I'm hoping that she can kind of take that momentum and move forward in a positive way. Next up, we have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This is one of my most anticipated books of 2025. Not only is it a play on Sleepless in Seattle, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, but I love B.K. Borison's writing. Her series Love Light Farms is one of my all-time favorite romance series, and I'm really excited for this to come out. I believe it comes out in February. Next up, we have A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. She also wrote The Unmaking of June Farrow and Spells for Forgetting. I love Spells for Forgetting, but I feel like I missed the mark on The Unmaking of June Farrow, and I feel like this is a personal preference because I know a lot of people love that book, and I'm really hoping that I will get back to the magic of Adrienne Young's writing in this new release. The 4th book on this list is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. She is a newer author to me. I read Ready or Not in October, I think. I did a 7 and 7 romance reading challenge reading this book. I'll link it down below so you can watch if you're interested. And I loved her writing, and I also thought the narration was fantastic. I'm hoping we'll get that same magic in Promise Me Sunshine. Last but certainly not least in the new releases category is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is book 3 in the When in Rome series. I truly adore this series, and I just adore Sarah Adams's writing altogether. I think this is one of her better series. I was most looking forward to When in Rome, but I think Practice Makes Perfect was such a surprise delight for me. Like, I figured I would like it, but I liked it so much more than I anticipated, which makes me so excited for Beg, Borrow, and Steal. This is a small town romance. It's got like the quirky small town characters that we love. I also love that we see snippets of the other characters throughout the whole series. All right, our next category is sequels, and some of these have been out for a little while and some of them are new releases, but first up we have The Winners by Frederick Backman. As you know, I'm currently rereading books 1 and 2 in this series, but this is the 3rd and final installment in the trilogy. I can't wait to get this, but I also know it's going to break my heart. So I think I'm going to read this in January. So this will be one of the first books that I vlog of the new year. Next up is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a newer release. I believe it came out in November of this year, and Better Than the Movies is one of my all-time favorite young adult romances. I think it's so sweet. I love Wes and Liz so much. I hear that this is a little bit deeper, and I think it's more from Wes's perspective than it is from Liz, and I've definitely heard mixed reviews about this book, so I'm a little weary of picking it up, but I do believe it's set in Los Angeles because I think they go to UCLA, which is kind of fun to read a book set in your town. And regardless, I'm excited to jump back into the world of Wes and Liz because they're just so sweet, and Wes loves her so much. Like, I can't get over his love for Liz. And I am excited, but I'm a little bit like cautiously nervous about this one. Now, the next three on this list are all new 2025 releases, the first of which being Rebel Witch, which is the second book in the Heartless Hunter duology. No, it's the Crimson Moth duology, I believe. The first book is Heartless Hunter, and we've got a witch hunter and a witch playing a little bit of a cat and mouse game, but we've got a little bit of fake dating as well. It's a little bit Regency. The ending of Heartless Hunter was not like all-time shocking, but it did leave us off in a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm excited to see where Rebel Witch picks up and kind of how this duology ends overall. Next in this list is Fearless by Lauren Roberts. Like most people, I really loved Powerless, and Reckless was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I honestly think that this trilogy could have been a duology, but I'm curious to see how she's going to end this whole trilogy, and I hope she can get some of the magic back from Powerless that we all loved so much. Last but not least in this list is Watch Me by Tahara Mafi. This is set in the Shatter Me world, which, if you know me at all, you know that Aaron Warner is like my book husband. I am so obsessed with him and with the Shatter Me series. Like, I cannot wait to jump back into this world. And I believe that this is set several years after the whole Shatter Me series has ended. And I believe our main character is Aaron Warner's son, if I'm correct, which, like, is kind of weird for me as someone who loves Aaron Warner so much, but I know we get snippets of Aaron in this book, and he's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and that just makes my heart so happy, so I cannot wait to pick up Watch Me. Our third category in this list is the Kindle Unlimited TBR, and you know I have so many books on my Kindle TBR, but I've chosen 5 books to share with you guys today. First up, we have Empire of a Vampire. This has been on my list for quite a while, and I was really shocked to see it on Kindle Unlimited, but I'm happy because that book is so freaking long. The paperback, though, is so floppy, and I almost bought it at the bookstore the other day, but I was like, let me try it out first before I buy it, because if I don't love it, I'm not gonna want it. I am cautiously optimistic about how I'm gonna feel about this book. My friend Mads has been talking about it forever, and it's been on my list, and I finally just need to read it for her. But I know that they're vampires, obviously, and I think this is a little bit darker. We're not talking Twilight here. We're talking like dark vampire vibes, and I don't know, I'm kind of intrigued. I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little bit intrigued, so this is first up on the list. Next up, we have Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is technically book 3 in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, but it's the second duology, so we're following 2 separate characters from the first 2 books. And while I'm intrigued by this, I didn't love the ending of Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, so I'm curious to see if I'm gonna like this one. I've heard mixed reviews about this as well. It did just come out, I think, in November. So I don't know if more people are gonna start talking about this book as they read it, but this is going on the list because I do want to continue the series. I do like Carissa Broadbent's writing, and I'm interested to see like the other vampires within this world. Third, we have False God by C.W. Farnsworth. This is the next generation book in the Fake Empire series, or I think it's the Kensington series. The first book is Fake Empire. I loved Fake Empire. I actually DNF'd book 2 just because of the tropes that were going on in it, and I didn't love the male main character very much. But book 3, False God, follows the daughter of the couple from book 1, and that's just really fun for me. I believe she is the billionaire, and he is like the aristocrat from England. I'm so excited. I've been putting this one off. It came out a few months ago, but I've been wanting to pick it up at just the right time, so it's going on my 2025 TBR. Next up, we have Peaches and Honey, which is a fantasy romance duology. One of my friends on Instagram read this a few months ago and really loved it, and I know Tori at Tori Between Pages recently finished this duology and gave it 5 stars, so it's jumped up pretty high on my TBR for next year. I've heard it gives Addie LaRue vibes, which I'm really into. That book is so beautiful and so sweet and also like so heartbreaking, so I'm curious to see if I will like this duology as well. And last but not least is House of Bane and Blood. I've heard all of the YouTube girlies talking about this one. It's giving steampunk. I believe there's a marriage of convenience in there, and I think this is a duology, so I'm pretty sure I'll just read back to back if I'm really loving House of Bane and Blood. Everyone that I've seen read this book has given it 5 stars, which gives me super high hopes that I'm going to love it as well. Our fourth category for today is physical TBR. Now, all of these books I own physically and have owned physically for quite a while. Well, a couple of them are newer releases, but I really need to get to these. Some of them I'm super excited about, others I've been dragging my feet, so I'm putting them on this list to make myself read them, and if I don't read them by the end of the year, they gotta go. First on the list is this chunker, The Priory of the Orange Tree. This has been on my TBR for a year and a half, 2 years? I think 2 years, and honestly, the only reason why I haven't picked it up is because it's so chunky, and I just cannot get over the size. Like, how am I supposed to carry this thing? It's almost 800 pages, which I have read longer books. Like, I have read all of Sarah J. Maas with no problem, but I just think, I don't know, it just feels chunky, it feels scary, it feels big, but I know I need to get to it, and I do think I'll really love it because it's dragons. Like, everything I've heard is amazing. I just need to pick it up and read the thing. Next up is a book that has been on my TBR for so long, and if it does not get read this year, it needs to go. It's been on so many lists. Every like fantasy series list I've made for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been on there, and I just have not read it. So I should probably DNF this. I mean, I haven't even started. I should probably just get rid of it, but I'm giving myself 1 more year, and that is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. I own this book on my Kindle as well. I have the whole trilogy on my Kindle, and I own the physical copy of the first book, and I still have not read this. So 2025 is the year, or it's gotta go. I have heard mixed things about this series, and that's probably why I'm hesitant to pick it up, but I am curious, and I just need to let my curiosity run wild and go with it and see if I end up liking it, because I might end up really loving it. And if I don't like book 1, I'll just DNF the series. Not a big deal. Next up is a book that has been on a lot of my TBRs recently, and I still have not read it. So it's going on 2025 TBR, and that is Masters of Death by Olive E. Blake. I did not end up reading this book in the fall. I just ran out of time. I missed my shot. So this is going on the 2025 TBR, and it will be read in fall because this is my fall book. It has to be read, or I don't know. Like, I have to read it. And I love Olive E. Blake's writing. I don't know why I keep putting it off. Like, is it because I don't think I'm gonna like it? Is it because it's a little bit more difficult to read? I just don't know. Maybe those are things I'm going to have to address in myself in 2025, but this is the year Masters of Death is going to get read in 2025. Now, the next 2 books on this list are books that are recent purchases for me, but I'm really excited to read them, which I think we kind of need in our physical TBRs, because I feel like a lot of the books on my physical TBR I've had for a very long time, which is why they are still on my physical TBR, because I'm not as excited to pick them up as newer releases. So it's really fun to have some newer releases or new to me books to kind of keep that momentum going. And the first book on that list is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. I recently bought this like this week at Barnes & Noble. If you haven't watched my book shopping video, spoiler alert, this is the one I buy. But I am really excited to start this series. I have a friend who really loves this series, and I trust her book opinions like with my life. I'm pretty sure I am also going to really enjoy this book and have a great time reading it. I bought it because it was just screaming at me to read it, and I don't know, I think it'll be a fun time next year. And last but not least on this list is The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. I have heard mixed things about this book. But overall, I think for me personally, based on other people's opinions, I will have a good time reading this. We've got Hades, we've got games, trials, we've got gods. Like for me, this feels like a winner in my book. I'm curious to see if I will still feel that way once I start reading it. But my sister bought this book like the same time I did, and we did not plan it. So I'm hoping for a little buddy read in 2025. Also, this is just so gorgeous. I know this book is on Kindle Unlimited, but when I saw it at the bookstore, I had to buy it. So I'll probably end up reading this on my Kindle, but I love having this copy because I think it's stunning. And I think book 2 comes out next year. I might be wrong. Don't take my word for it, but if I end up loving this, I think this is a series that I will get into. The fifth and final category in my 2025 TBR is fan fiction, and I used to read a lot of fan fiction, but the last like year and a half, I feel like I've kind of fallen off the wagon, and I want to get back on because there are so many fanfics that I've heard of recently that I'm like itching to get to. Now, I primarily read Hermione fanfics, so if that's not something you're into, you can go ahead and end the video here. But if you are or you're curious about it, stick around. I'm going to give you 5 fanfics that are on my TBR and that maybe you should put on your TBR as well. First, we're going to start with Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love. This is such a long title, and to be honest, I actually started this fanfic a couple of years ago and I stopped it around 10%, but this is one of the most like prolific Hermione fanfics, and I just really want to see if I'm going to like it or if that was like a fluke that I had to put it down. This is being turned into an actual novel, I believe, just kind of like how some authors have taken their fanfic and turned them into novels. I believe this one is going to be published as well in 2025. I already have this on my Kindle. I don't know if you can still download it from AO3, Archive of Our Own. That's where I get all of my fanfic, but if you can, I would check there first. Next up is Universal Truths. This is also Hermione fanfic, and it has been sold to me as a Pride and Prejudice retelling, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So I was like, yep, sold, sign me up. This one has to be read in 2025. Next up, we have The Portrait of Draco Malfoy. One of my friends over on Bookstagram recently recommended this one to me, and I believe it's like post-war vibes. Hermione is looking for some comfort after like the trauma of everything that happened, and she looks in the most unlikely of places, which is going to be Draco, of course. I think it's a little bit of a slow burn. I believe this is completed, but I should double check because I hate starting a work in progress and not knowing it until I get to that final chapter. Next up on this list is Out of Time, which I believe takes place during 6th year. I think it has to be a retelling of 6th year because Hermione, but it's getting a little bit darker vibes, so I'm curious to see if I'm gonna like this one or not. I typically like more of the like happy Hermione fanfic. I liked Manacled, I liked The Auction, but for me, those aren't my like all-time favorite Hermione fanfics. I like a little bit of a softer, happier ending type of vibe, so I'm curious to see if I'm gonna like this, but I wanted to add it to the list because it's been recommended to me and I just want to give it a try. Last up, we have Hogwarts A Home, which is not specifically Hermione. We've got several characters' POVs throughout this entire fanfic, but I'm adding this to the list because it was recently finished and I'm excited to jump in. I did start this one a couple of years ago as well, and I got a few chapters in and just decided to wait until it was finished. And now, since it's finished, I'm going to jump in. I believe this picks up, I want to say, during 6th year as well, and it's a complete like reimagining, so we're retelling the story of like the last couple of books. So we'll see if I ended up liking this one. I think because it's not just Hermione, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I have heard amazing things and I really want to give it a shot. There are all 25 books that are must-reads for me in 2025. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and which ones need to pop to the top of my TBR. If you enjoyed today's video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of this little community here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have the most wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next one.